Hi, everyone, and thank you again for tuning into Marketing Automation Made Simple podcast. This is your host, Jovana from bumperleads.com, and I am on a mission to simplify the world of marketing and automation for small business owners around the world so you can save time, money, and scale your businesses faster. What I want to do today is just a solo episode. I haven't recorded one in a while. I've been busy interviewing quite a few guests, as you can see, a lot of different platforms, which is not normally something that we publish on our podcast. We normally want to talk about the strategies, the use cases, examples, different tactics in terms of how you can grow your business using automations. But in this case, I made an exception because I know that some of these platforms are doing some really amazing work, especially when it comes to AI. What I wanted to share with you today is, I guess, flowing on from some of the interviews that I've done, but also some of the conversations I've had with some of our clients. And what struck me is that now that we have so much choice in technology, and technology has changed so much in the last 20 years, 30 years, even in the last year, things look so different in 2024 that it made me think about how we can go back to basics and how we can make it easy for us to simplify our tech in our business and how to make sense of it all. I started to think about bumper leads and what we do here that we kind of take for granted in terms of setting up automations. And based on all of those interviews that I've done with different platforms and all the several conversations that I've had with clients and our staff and partners that we work with, it made me think that the choices that we suddenly have at our disposal to automate things, to improve our business, suddenly can be overwhelming for a lot of business owners who are not tech savvy, but also for people who are tech savvy and who've been doing this for a long time. Some of these technologies that are coming out, it can feel at times that the ground is a bit shaky. I don't know how to describe it, but almost on a daily basis, you could say, you work so hard in developing something and then pop, some app shows up with the ChatGPT or AI and they have a solution for this particular problem that you're working on. So it can make your life easy, but it can also complicate your life. And I wanted to record this episode today because I was inspired by talking to a client today around how we could set some kind of boundaries or have some kind of principles that we could then rely in our business when it comes to automations. And so it made me think about how we do things in bumper leads and how we automate and before we automate. And so there's so many things to think about, but there are some key elements that we always seem to fall back on, which are what I call our automation principles. And something that it really, really helps when you are confused, when you're feeling confused about what to do. There are some principles that always stay true regardless of what platform you use, what you're doing, what type of business you're running. These are the principles that you're going to rely on when you start to automate in your business. And how many principles do we have? So I was reflecting how many principles we do have, and some of them we take for granted. But I came up with 10 principles that we use in bumper leads, and we also advise our clients on certain things. And before we start anything, the principle number 1 is always how can we work less and convert more? This is kind of always in the back of our minds when we're working with clients, when we're doing projects ourselves. We always think about what type of work can we automate, what type of work can we delegate, and how can we work less, save time, but how can we do more with less and convert more? Converting is a principle that we don't talk much about in the marketing space. We always talk about leads, attracting leads. You could be talking to agencies that specialize in generating leads online, maybe social media or paid advertising. But converting leads is where the power of automation, marketing automation is. And so if you are talking to us or other marketing consultants, you are looking for ways to save time in your business. So you are looking for ways to work less, but you also want to leverage all the effort that you're taking in your marketing, that you're doing in your marketing, I should say, and how can you convert more in your business? So conversion is something that we can control as business owners. We can control the conversion rates in our business. So that is the power of marketing automation. That's, in my opinion, where you can really truly benefit from generating more revenue and more business from existing efforts that you are already taking. So it's a great leverage for any business to adopt. So that's number one, work less, convert more. Number two is simplicity. Of course, our podcast is called Marketing Automation Made Simple, and there is a reason for it. We have had instances when we've worked with a lot of programmers or SaaS businesses, and they love to create and build projects. They love to code, they love to create projects, but they often can overcomplicate some very simple things. And, we have also been guilty of that ourselves. When you start to be as experienced, when you have a lot of automations under your belt, you've built that automation muscle, then you start to challenge yourself and you want to push yourself by building more complicated ways or finding other ways to do the same thing. So sometimes your client, if you're in the automation space, your client may not necessarily want that complexity. So we want to try and keep things simple, and it's very easy to scale when things are simple. So we are always thinking of how can we reduce. If you build something, you go back and review it and see, can I do this with less complexity? How can I keep it more simple? So that's our principle number two. Number three is something that I tend to share and remind myself. It's always in the back of my head when I'm doing any automations or designing any automations. But number three is where my interview with Chris Davis, I've actually had him on a podcast a couple of times. But he has this favorite thing that he says, and I always repeat this to myself. And he says, if you set it and forget it, you will regret it. So it rhymes, it's perfect, it works fantastic for any automation. Once a year, we need to review more of what was set up, just do a small audit, because things, as I mentioned, change in our technology environment. And then if we don't change and adapt to that, we will regret it. Yeah, there may be times when a wrong email is being sent because you changed something on your website and it's triggering a different type of message to be sent out to different leads. So we always have to check content, check start triggers, test these automations. Technology, as I said, adapts, and so if you set it and forget it, you will regret it. Number four is an inspiration from a personality that I follow in the online space, Naval Ravikant. You probably heard of him. And his quote is always in the back of my mind, and that is, if the work doesn't require creativity, automate it, delegate it, or leave it. So I'll just say that again. If the work doesn't require creativity, automate it, delegate it, or leave it. I think that's perfect. As human beings, we love to create. We are creative. We like to innovate. This is what brings us joy, makes us happy when we start to think of new solutions or creative solutions. If you look at art, if you invest in art, or if you appreciate music and anything like that, you will find that it really develops some kind of creative energy and flow in you. So if you have tasks in your business that don't give you joy, then it's something that you should really automate, delegate, or just leave it as is. Don't focus on it. So it's a really good tip by Naval that I really like. Number 5, your consumer is not stupid. They are your wife. This quote is by Pip Laja, who runs a popular blog called Conversion XL. I encourage all of my listeners to go and check out Conversion XL. I think it's conversionxl.com. I'll include it in the show notes. But Pip has been a big personality, big guru in the space of conversions, copywriting. He also has a bit of content around marketing automation, and you can sign up and do some of his online trainings on how to be a better digital marketer and how you can improve your skills more from advanced levels. Even SEO, the conversion side, started off, I think, with him from an SEO perspective, and then it moved to other avenues of digital marketing. But I think the key is that when we deal with the clients or we have our customers in our business, and sometimes they don't understand things, they don't understand what you do, or they can't describe exactly what their pain points are. This is where we need to treat them like they are our wife. We need to be understanding, empathetic, and caring and nurturing to make sure that we understand all of their needs before we can make some recommendations or suggestions. The worst thing you can do is make a suggestion without understanding their business needs, and things can get very, very ugly very quickly. I'm not saying that it's true for all the wives, but yeah, it can be a problem. So that's the quote by Pete Larger that I like. The other number 6 principle that we tend to use internally, especially if we need to make decisions around what platforms to choose, which platforms play nice with each other, how to go about integrations, if you're stuck on custom versus off-the-shelf type of solutions. So the principle that we rely on is, if you're in doubt, always choose native. We always prefer to have native integrations where possible, because the native integrations allow us to rely, I guess, on these platforms to manage their own API information, terms and conditions that come with APIs, the policies, the privacies. An API for every single platform can change maybe once a year. Some of these platforms update it, so you want to make sure that you're always current when it comes to APIs. And so if we have an opportunity to use native integrations and native apps, that's going to be our first choice. But in some circumstances, you don't necessarily have the luxury of choosing native. Then the second best choice is for us to use third-party integrators like Zapier, as I've learned how to pronounce Zapier. Keep saying Zapier. Zapier or Make is another one. And there's so many now coming up in the marketplace. So if we can have the middleman or native solutions, that would be ideal. But if you can't have that with whatever the platform you're using, then obviously you can have custom solutions. You might have very complex custom requirements, maybe enterprise level requirements. Then I think you may need to speak to someone, an API developer, to set up some of the integrations for you. Number 7, amplify what's working. And this is self-explanatory. We often focus on finding gaps or problems that we want to fix, but maybe there is an opportunity for us to improve what's working. And, sometimes, again, we go back to principle number 3. If you set it and forget it, you will regret it. If you had an opportunity to improve your conversion rates from how you do SEO or how you collect leads, maybe when you talk to clients, you might have an offering that is converting well verbally during consultations and discovery calls, then you could translate that into an online type of lead magnet or an online solution that you can offer that can help your sales staff save time instead of repeating themselves on the phone for various different things. So if there is an opportunity for you to amplify what's working, choosing something that is beneficial, that will give you the biggest bang for your buck, as the saying goes. Number 9, when things go wrong, go back to the start. We get clients coming to us saying, I've hired somebody and my automations are not working. Can you go and fix it? So the first thing we would do, and I'm sure that, for whatever reason, things may not work. Usually, most of the time, it comes back to the brief, what the client expectation was and what the automation consultant did at the time. And that changes all the time. So I don't blame the automation consultant in any case. But if there is a technical reason why something is not working, it's pretty much because of the triggers that you have set in your automations. The start trigger may be wrong. It could be applied as a wrong use case. So you might be using a tag or a custom field. Tags can get very messy if you don't look after them, if you don't have a foundation in place for tags. So easily, if you have more than one person actually touching the system, you'll start generating so many tags in the system, and you won't be firing automations if you have a little space or a capital versus lowercase type of tag. Things are not going to fire exactly the same. So sometimes we have to go back and just have a look at how the automation is started and then retrace the steps back. So when things go wrong, go back to the start. Number 10, test, and do more testing. So we typically test automations as if we are a new lead. Even before we build something for a client, we would go on the website and test things out. You go through the form, the contact us form, you might download a lead magnet. So you'll test certain things, maybe behaviors, and then you go into setting up the automation. And once things are set up, you could go and test as a lead and as a customer. So you might have an opportunity to do both. And you should always test, I guess, in incognito browser, so that every test you run is a new test. Then you have to go back and remember to remove your email address if you've used that email address and that email address. So test, and test some more. And lastly, I'm going to add this bonus principle that I've discovered in my recent interview with Chris Davis, that has really opened my eyes around what is possible in terms of segmentations. His t-shirt really summarizes everything that we talked about. And he was wearing a t-shirt called Automate Responsibly. And it is so true. It cannot be further from the truth. The automation truth. Automate responsibly. And responsibly, it covers everything we just talked about. Being responsible, being caring, treating your customers like you treat your wife. If in doubt, always choose native. Amplify what's working. Always test. If something goes wrong, go back to the start. Look, these are typical things that we take for granted in our day-to-day when we work with clients. And I thought this episode I could summarize them all for you and see if it makes any sense. But you might want to add some of your principles. Is there something that I haven't mentioned that you think, oh, this is a really good thing that I do in my business or in my consultancy, in my agency that I have? This is the number one thing I always do with a client before we get started or during automation build phase. What's the first thing I would do, or what's some of the things that I always fall back on? And that's it. That's it for me now. I just wanted to do a quick episode on this because it is something that matters to me. And I think you guys, my listeners, will find this very helpful. If you are automating, building automations, thinking about automations, have existing automations that you want to review. These are some of the principles that we would always think about and apply in our business. So before I let you go, I will mention that we have one more episode to go in this season. This season will finish with one of the very major platforms in the marketing automation space that I am sure you guys have grown up with since you were 5 years old. So this platform is going to be doing some very interesting things, very crazy things. And I think it's about time for them to change and adapt to the new environment that we are in. And as I said, the technology moves so fast. I think they have the resources, the whole ecosystem is ready for them to pick up the pace and even become the leader in this space. So I'm going to interview them and publish something in the next couple of weeks, which I'm excited about. And that will be our last episode for the season. And in the next season, what I want to do is share more about the strategy part, automation strategy, and some examples. So just to give you some ideas around different industries and what we've been doing and how different strategies were applied, how all the principles that I shared with you today actually apply in the real world. So that's going to be coming up in season 3. All right, well, that's it from me now. I wish you all the best. Have a great day. Have a wonderful day. And I'll see you soon.